Well, good morning and welcome to Mayor's Weekly. We're pleased, as always, to have you with us. And today we have a special guest, Mike Ferdinand, who is the recently hired Executive Director for Economic Development at the Jasper Industrial Development Board. And before we talk with Mike, I want to lay a little foundation about economic development in our city. And this is an area that's heretofore has had little or no sunshine, and I don't mean that to convey some message of suspicion or wrongdoing. It just doesn't get a lot of attention, but it's a major expenditure on the part of this city. As you know, our city budget's about $27 million, and those monies pay for a lot of things. We have departmental expenditures, that being police department, fire department, and we have non-departmental expenditures. And the city's contribution to economic development is the second largest non-departmental expenditure in the city of Jasper. The first one is the Jasper City Board of Education. There are those out there that have spoken to me that think we don't provide money for our school system. Well, let me tell you, and these documented, 25% of our budget goes to the Jasper City school system, and that's documented. If you ever need to see that information, we can provide that to you. The second largest expenditure, non-departmental expenditure in this city, is for economic development. And the city council has approved, and we pay in just over $500,000 a year to the effort of economic development. The way it has been handled in the past, economic development and promoting Jasper has been farmed out to a third party, and and we've gone a long time being 6 years, without landing an industrial prospect. Far too long. And when I think about the city, the taxpayers putting $500,000 a year into economic development, you go 6 years without much or any return on your money. That's not good. There's some folks that seem to be okay with that, and everybody's entitled to their opinion. I can't stand before the taxpayers of this city and tell you that we'd spend $3 million and get nothing for it. And I go on record saying that, and open my doors wide open for any scrutiny that you might want to give me. But that it's just not acceptable. And so we set about probably 6 months ago to change course on how we do things, and certainly the board has full autonomy in their operation. But at the end of the day, our Industrial Development Board, the assets of that board, the liabilities of that board belong to the city. The appointments of that board are made by the city council, and they serve like 5-year terms or whatever. That we have to do something different. We have to try something different. That we have to bring value to the taxpayers if we're going to spend that kind of money. And so what was happening under the old arrangement, our money would go down a straight pipe and then take a 90-degree turn. And when it took a 90-degree turn, the taxpayers of this city, the council, whatever, had nothing more than a puppet string to affect how that money was spent and what you got for your money. So it was our belief, and as we did research in cities that are doing extremely well, we were told that that was not a good arrangement, and we were told by some professional folks. I have a very interesting study that was professionally prepared, paid for by private funds, no public fund, that said we were not structured correctly. We took that to heart and encouraged and got the economic development, the Jasper Industrial Development Board moved along that they would hire their own economic developer. And with that happening today, the folks that allocate the taxpayers' money, they have a straight line to where that money is spent. I can tell you echoes and vibrations travel a straight line better than they do 90-degree turns. You don't have to be some physicist or whatever to understand that. And so we set about, the board did, hired a consulting firm, the Next Move Group, probably the premier consulting firm in this part of the country, and looking for economic developers. Right now, this firm's representing Pinellas County down in Florida, Tampa. That's a huge area. Their client list is really, really top drawer. And we were able to hire the gentleman sitting next to me, Mike Ferdinand, and Mike came on board on Monday, I believe. Is that
yes,
right,
sir.
Mike?
My first day was Monday.
Mike is a native of Louisiana, went to school at LSU.
Please don't hold that against me.
No, we're not. And I've assured him that won't happen. Mike's worked in South Mississippi, Louisiana, Texas, and he's been in a number of venues, and his experience is long, it's varied. Sometimes you can have 1 year of experience 20 times, or you can have 20 years experience, and there's a vast difference in the two scenarios I just described. But Mike, we're glad you're here. I sat down with you on Monday and
yes, sir.
Told you that I hope you would call your wife on Friday and tell her you feel like you moved in with family. That's our goal. We want you to like Jasper. We want Jasper to be a good place to live. We want you to be positioned to be productive, as I shared with you. Mike will be housed here in our city facilities at our annex. Next to folks that he can work collaboratively with. That'd be our city engineer, city planner, the building inspector, and we're working now to get Mike around where he gets to know other members in our city leadership, because that team can all work together in what Mike is going to do. But Mike, you've been at it a long time, maybe 28 years or so?
Thereabouts, yes, sir. Started in '93.
Okay, and you've seen a lot of things in your career. I know as I looked at your resume, I mean, you have experience even working with rail and ocean going, and all of those could conceivably have value to us here in Jasper in our recruiting, I would gather.
Absolutely. So as we look at Jasper and our existing industries and the industries around us, it's about building the Jasper brand and having companies that are looking at not only fitting in that logistics chain, but also looking for their next best place to expand, joint venture, relocate, or acquire. And one of the things I am really looking forward to, Jasper is such an incredible community, is taking that message to business and industry to help create primary jobs.
Now, here's what I just heard, and what really strikes a positive note with me. You're talking about being proactive.
Absolutely.
In the business of recruiting industry. Talking about going to see somebody.
Absolutely.
Hey, we want you to come to Jasper. Not one of these, as they used to talk about in marketing, we're an order taker, where we do this and say, well, somebody will come by one day. We don't take that approach, are we?
No, sir. There are 15,000 other communities out there that want business.
Right.
Just like us. So if we're not actively promoting ourselves, a lot of folks just simply don't know that Jasper even exists. If you're not out there pounding the pavement to some degree and delivering our message, it is rare that you have leads walk in the door. Now, for economic development, it's critical to grow the business you have and recruit new, and you need to balance it. And I intend on working both avenues, absolutely. One of the key things is making sure that we're prepared for growth, which Jasper is a head and shoulders above a lot of communities. So now it's simply a matter of drafting our story and delivering it. And there are two groups we really need to focus on. There's your business and industry, and there's also a group called the site locators. They're the professionals that are often hired for some businesses to evaluate a community, and we need to get our message in front of both.
Yeah. Mike, one of the things, and I think this is an accurate analogy. I like to fish a little bit, and
I do too.
Particularly crappie fishing, and one of the things I've noticed that the professional crappie guides, which you pay a good fee for those guys to take you fishing, and they have to be successful or that client doesn't come back.
Right.
And I was reading in one of my outdoor magazines the other day, and it was an interview with one of those guys, and they were showing their approach to fishing. And guess what? They had an apparatus out there where they had multiple hooks in the water. And,
Sure.
you know, what I was able to conclude from that is the more hooks you have in the water, the greater likelihood is to catch fish. Is that reasonable?
Absolutely. And, you know, with that, one of my first set of actions right off the bat is to really assess where we are and identify those hooks.
Yeah.
And then place them where they need to be. You need to fish where the fish are, quite
Yeah.
frankly. And we need to present to the businesses and industries that are most likely to consider us for that next step.
Yeah.
And that's very doable.
Yeah.
You know, it's a matter of multiple steps. We don't have enough time, quite frankly, to go into that, but I'd be happy to sit down and explain to anyone who's willing to listen to me for 20 minutes that process.
Yeah. It's, and Mike, we talked a little bit about what defines a prospect, and you spend a lot of time. You know, if I were to walk back in my office here and I had a call from Macy's, I'd be pretty certain they're not a prospect for Jasper. You know what I mean? And you spend a lot of time, money, and energy chasing rabbits that don't exist. And
Right.
how do we drive around burning up energy and money on things that, and you can't get it right all the time? But it seems like there ought to be some qualifiers.
Well, so we can get prospects from a number of different sources.
Yeah.
And I like to think there's two categories. There's a suspect and a prospect.
Yeah.
Okay. A suspect is a general inquiry that comes in that you provide general information to.
Right.
So that's the fastest and easiest way to address the tire kicker, so to
Right.
speak, that comes in. If you think along the car lot line where you go and buy a car, they're not quite ready to buy yet. They're just kind of looking around. So you have that information available and you send it to them.
Right.
You don't spend a lot of time on it.
Right.
But when you have the real prospect who is saying, I am going to locate somewhere. This is my need, this is my want, and you are a candidate, that's when you develop a specific proposal for that prospect.
And
then it becomes a project.
then it seems to me, and I have no training in economic development, that you have to learn as best you can as you talk with these folks what would stand in the way of those folks coming to your community. As I told you, we had a situation with a Chinese group that we put lots and lots of time and energy into, and at the end of the day, they went somewhere else. And what they told us, Mike, they said, we have to have access to international flights, so they're going to locate over on the east side of Atlanta. Well, we never had international flights at the outset, you know, so they could not have been a prospect for us.
Every once in a while, you do come across a company that will engage you, and what they're really trying to do is use your proposal to get a better deal somewhere else.
Yeah.
So you have to be mindful of that with every prospect you talk to.
Yeah, and are there ways to try to sift through that? And I know those folks are very sophisticated or whatever, but I have to feel like there are ways to try to feel that out and see if that's what's taking place.
So, once again, when we're talking about companies, sometimes they will, what I call telegraph, they'll send messages that they are probably not going to include you. One of the key things is they only return your phone calls periodically.
Yeah.
You know, that's one thing. Site locators, you know what the process is.
Yeah.
And if you've got a good relationship for them, they'll tell you up front.
Yeah. That whether you're just playing along or you've got a real chance at it.
Yes, sir.
That sort of thing.
That's correct.
Mike, with Thursday, you came here Monday, and of course I know as you interviewed for this job that you did your due diligence and
Yes, sir.
learned as much as you can about as you could about Jasper.
Absolutely.
And, that sort of thing. At this very young stage in your tenure here in Jasper, what do you see as opportunities for this city to grow?
Well, you've done a wonderful job in investing in sites and having them prepared and ready to go. So if you don't have a product, you can't get a project. So you've got a product.
Right.
So now it's a matter of taking that product, do some further development. You can always improve and get more, but take what you've got and move it to market, so to speak.
Right. Well, and I'm so pleased with our automotive suppliers.
Absolutely.
And there's diversity in that, as I shared with you, and I think others will. It would be great if we could have some diversity in different lines of work. We've got automotive. Could we have whatever else?
Oh, sure.
So we don't get our legs cut out from under us.
You always want to diversify your economy.
Right.
That way it's more resilient. The national economy goes up and down, and you want to keep yours as flat as possible.
Right.
So you don't have those hard impacts of economic swings. So mixing in other businesses and industries that aren't as subject to the swing or that are what we call contracyclical, that means that they are opposite the national trend, help keep your economy rock solid going forward. So where we can attract that type of business, we focus on it.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got a large wood basket here. How can we further develop the wood industry? We've got the most important thing of all in a business expanding, joint venture, relocating, or acquiring are the people here. And by tapping that resource, you've got a tremendous labor force here. I think we can land some significant projects.
Yeah. Mike, we talked a little bit about this. We talked about our neighbor northeast of here, that being Coleman, and the great job that they've done over the year with
Yes,
smaller manufacturers. And you spoke a little bit about the importance of small manufacturers in the big picture. Could you touch on that a little bit?
Absolutely. You want a mix. You want small manufacturers and you want some large ones. Your major impact project, the big one, they can be community changers. But what happens if they shut down? Then you have a devastated community. By also having a good solid mix of small to mid-sized manufacturers, once again ideally that are of different types of industries, metal fabrication, you could be blending operations, things like that, it makes your base a lot more solid. So and once again it goes back to making your economy less subject to the national swings or international swings, for that matter.
Well, Mike, one of the things I shared with Mike, and he knows about that, is topographically we're challenged in Walker County. It costs a lot of money. The most recent data we have relates to our prepared site, where we had to spend about $20,000 an acre to prepare that site. Well, if you do a 50-acre site, 20,000 acres, that comes to $1 million. And
Sure.
And the vast majority of the time you have to give that away, don't you, Mike? And when you do that, and so, but what we talked about is as you look at the property we have in our industrial park, and there's sites that there's probably not enough money at the mint to get it level and whatever. But could we get a higher level of utilization out of the property we have by doing some 10-acre sites or 15-acre sites that you might could very well do that would be suitable for that small manufacturer?
We absolutely need a mix. You want to be able to present to that small manufacturer. You want to be able to present to the large one. So you need both small and large tracts of land to be able to present, because you never know what the next prospect will need.
Right.
So if you're prepared by having both, you're ahead of the game and ahead of 2/3 of those 15,000 other communities.
Right. Well, as I mentioned to you, Mike's office is in our City Hall Annex, which is on the north side of City Hall here. Mike you can reach him by phone, come by, visit. As I tell you about the Mayor's Weekly, you send us questions, and if they're not written with a poison pen, then we're going to get you an answer, and would like for folks to know more about how we go about economic development, because it's a key to us continuing to grow this city. And I'm very optimistic that our new structure and how we go about things will pay dividends over time. And Mike, I wish for you much success. And as I told Mike, that he can be assured that we'll support him in a way that he can be successful.
Thank you,
and,
sir.
Mike, we're glad you're with us. And again,
I am glad to be here.
And as I told you, I'm biased, but I'd be surprised if you don't like Jasper, Alabama. And just look forward to working with you and making good things happen for our city. So I appreciate you joining me this morning.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate the opportunity to introduce myself. And you know, my number one goal is for at the end of someone graduating either from high school, trade school, or college, if they want to come back here and have a job, they can.
Yeah.
So
And it's so important.
yes, sir.
Well, again, we welcome your questions, and we'll look forward to being with you next week. Thank you.